I don't mean to be rude, but how do people in that area not have important things in a box by the door right now? Dude, I don't think you understand. The Altadena fires just came out of nowhere, and so did the Pacific Palisades ones. Like it straight up escalated to this point that no one thought it would have. It happened virtually in a matter of like 30 to 40 minutes. This is not an area where there is a lot of wildfire impact.
Alert, high alert.
All right, there it is. Let's talk about the real issues, okay? Reporter talking to enslaved firefighters. Today I was granted access to speak to the incarcerated firefighters. They told me they hadn't showered in 5 days. They were not provided regularly meals. They were working 24 hours in a row. They feel underappreciated and underpaid. We'll talk to them as well. They also said they all wanted to be there and that they see work as an important way to give back to the community. These fires exist in the context of all fires that came before. I think that's so overlooked. It's not like the fire fell out of a coconut tree, you know? No, it didn't. It fell out of a eucalyptus tree, though. Anyway, when people say thoughts and prayers when a shooting happens, isn't that cringe? Did you just... American brain, dude. I'm not even going to fault you for this, chatter. Okay? I'm not going to fault you for this. There is a difference between natural disasters and gun violence. Gun violence is not a natural disaster, no matter how much Americans act like it is. There is no other country on this planet where people go, oh, that's a naturally occurring phenomena, gun violence. Okay? That's why one is cringe, because it's a very preventable issue, whereas the other, no matter how much you try to prevent it, can still end up devastating an entire region, because overcoming nature is quite difficult. There are actual actions that one can take to prevent these things, including fires. Yes, you cannot totally prevent the fires, but you can protect those who are more economically vulnerable. Oh my God. No, there is the reason why it's cringe when people say thoughts and prayers after gun violence is specifically because it is not a natural disaster. Okay? There is no way that you can 100% chatters, unless you have a wind machine that I am oblivious to, unless you know that there is like some kind of weather wind machine that I was just unaware of, you cannot combat 80 to 100-mile winds. Virtually every single professional that works in dealing with the harm mitigation has said as much. We used it to hit Florida. Yeah, that's true. We did use weather machines. One might even say that this is a weather machine turned on itself. Never heard of the HARP before, huh? And you call yourself a political commentator. That's right. Seems like this idiot is oblivious. What is this? Call me a conspiracy theorist, but there is no way that 8 different fires starting within a period of 48 hours in LA is due to climate change. Yeah. Laughing at clown world during the collapse of the Western society. Stop geoengineering. Stop mRNA. Reject woke ideology. No wars. Conspiracy realist. Coincidence analyzer.
Theorist, but there is no way that 8 different fires.
You know she is huffing on that raw milk. You know she is drinking that unpasteurized Garbo right now, okay?
Fires starting within a period of 48 hours in LA is due to climate change. You want to tell me that insurance companies canceling people's policies in these areas over the past few months, officials cutting firefighting funding, emptying water reservoirs, and being more concerned?
I love conspiracy theorists because they look at the crisis caused by constant corner cutting, profit seeking, budget reductions, and austerity due to capitalism. Okay? And they just go, there's got to be something out there. There's got to be a real crazy, not systemic factor at play here. Okay? Let me keep drinking my raw milk. I'm sure I'll find the answers there. It's always so funny. It's like they are so goddamn close. They are so close to kind of recognizing what's going on. It's a joke. She is fun. Check her interviews and podcasts. You think this person is joking? They have a homesteading account. They're selling healing powers of tallow.
After the
letting the people of Hawaii, North Carolina, and now LA rot in these post-apocalyptic scenes while they funnel away our tax dollars to foreign countries. Look at the milk stain on her chin. It's definitely a joke. I don't think she's joking. And I don't think 48,000 people clicked on the like on this tweet because they were like, haha, this is a funny joke. I don't think she's joking at all.
about sending aid to another country is just coincidence? Okay. Call me the fires. North Carolina, after the floods, supposedly received roughly $2 billion for disaster recovery. And now we have LA with Joe pledging 100% rebuild costs, just like he did with North Carolina. He even said with North Carolina, I'm here to say the United States, the nation, has your back. We're not leaving until you're back on your feet completely. So how is that going for the people of Hawaii or North Carolina? Because they are not back up on their feet. They even had to pay property taxes on properties that don't exist anymore, and they are still living in tents. Is it possible that these events are just part of a massive land grab for things like 15-minute smart cities?
The American century of humiliation is upon us. And it's a self-inflicted wound. The American century of domination is over before the century even ends. Okay? We couldn't make it into the 40s. We could not have 100 years of pure domination. It's done. The American century of humiliation is upon us, even though we are the hegemon. This is a self-inflicted wound born out of profit-seeking parasitic forces that have consistently undermined education, destroyed this country. Wow. The Burger Reich is shitting and farting itself to death. It's so bad. That fake journalist who went to the empty reservoir earlier and just asked questions and did not answer any is basically just doing TikTok brain like this girl here, but just a little bit more official. Yeah.
And you may be thinking that $2 billion is a lot for disaster recovery, but just a few weeks ago, Joe pledged almost $6 billion to be sent to here, bringing the total amount of aid sent to here around $175 billion that we know of. And you still think your elected officials care about you? Okay.
I like that chatters were convinced that this person is so insane that it must be satire. That's cool. All right, we're going to get to the looting in a second. Let's
turn it back on. So it was almost inevitable.
I gotta go pee real quick
this
again.
was going to occur. We always need to have boots in the ground. The idea that they don't have boots in the ground and some of this terrain is inaccessible, they need to get firefighters or crew members in there separating the burn from the unburned. So some of the feeds will show the aircraft doing outstanding jobs as far as the helicopters making pinpoint drops, or some of the fixed aircraft making retardant drops, which is great. But at some given point, you still need to get boots in the ground to separate the burn from the unburned to get containment lines in.
Well, that is a story we've been telling, actually, for all these days, that there just aren't enough resources to go around. And it's just extraordinary, Daryl, when you consider how many fires are burning. And while there might be one that's drawing all the attention, you certainly cannot let the others just go. So there are plenty of people, plenty of fire officials and professionals that are handling all those other fires. And we kept seeing so many little spot fires pop up, little vegetarian fires.
Yeah,
not vegetarian fires.
Yeah. But what we have seen this morning, Chief, is the air power has really been extraordinary. We saw one home burn, but talk about the value of those resources and how important they are.
Yeah, I think that today you can see the significant value and investment that we've made at the state, local, and federal level as it relates to aircraft, because you have aircraft from all three entities. And you can see the impact that it's having today because the aircraft are able to fly. The helicopters have water sources where they can quickly pick up water.
One of the coolest military-sponsored projects with the federal government is the utilization of bomb droppers. I think it's called MAFS. It's so sick. MAFS C-130. Okay, they literally they changed their payload from actual bombs into fire retardant material. MAFS equipped with C-130s joined the fight against raging Los Angeles fires. A C-130 MAFS 9 from Nevada Air National Guard's 152nd Airlift Wing performs a water drop. They either do water drops or they just straight up deploy a payload with like water in it. Yeah. Modular Airborne Firefighting System is what it's called, where they take C-130s and they just bomb the fire. U.S. Northcom has activated 8 C-130 aircraft equipped with maps to relocate to the Channel Islands in Southern California to support firefighting efforts in the LA area. Some will be operational on January 10th. All will be ready by January 12th. Anyway, C-130s are awesome because they can fly slow while being so damn big, which means they can spray more ground. Yeah, that is the appropriate usage of military equipment, okay? MAFS was instituted in 1971 as a collaborative effort between the U.S. Forest Service and the Department of Defense to produce equipment, training, and operational procedures to integrate military air tankers into a national firefighting response, Northcom said. The U.S. Air Force explains that MAFS unit can fit inside C-130 airplanes, is installed without any structural modification, and within 2 hours, the MAFS equipment has a jet blower type nozzle on the rear left side near the bay doors. The carriage unit consists of a cylindrical tank, pumps, and other electronic control, and operation units that are loaded by Air Force loadmasters through the rear ramp. Here's a video of it.
Don't look ahead, there's stormy weather. Another roadblock in our way. But if we go together.
Yo, I used to subcontract these parts of the C-130, but you convinced me to quit, and now I'm a union organizer with AFD. Thanks, dude. I am broke, though, now. Like, really broke. Lol. Okay, I'm sorry. The system can discharge a fire retardant load of 3,000 gallons, which is 11,356 liters for the Euro cucks in the chat, in less than 5 seconds through a discharge tube located in place on the left rear paratroop doors of the aircraft. Released from an altitude about 150 feet, the retardant covers an area 1/4 of a mile long and 60 feet wide, with the plane returning to an air tanker base to be refilled again and airborne in less than 20 minutes. Interestingly, this very capability that the CL-415 Super Scooper seaplanes offer by landing on a large water body to refill their tanks to 7,000 liters, which is 1,850 U.S. gallons in Freedom units of water in just 14 seconds to quickly return to attack the fire. Other fixed-wing aircraft cannot execute continuous drops like the CL-415 and thus need to land back at an airport to refill. California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE, also provided more details about how MAFs will be deployed. Unlike CAL FIRE air tankers, MAFs aircraft are not initial attack qualified and require an aerial supervision module lead plane in order to conduct drops, says the agency. This typically limits their use to established extended attack incidents, which help keep CAL FIRE and other IA air tankers available to be quickly dispatched to new fires. MAFs units retardant is made up of 80 to 85% water, 10 to 15% ammonium sulfate, a gelling agent, and red coloring. The red in the retardant acts as a color code, helping pilots see where they have dropped previous loads. The retardant itself disperses as mist, preventing damage to buildings. The MAFs crews participate in recurring annual training, with each unit required to have 5 certified personnel for the role. It's sick. Yeah, you need to use your tactical deployment speak. I mean, they are. Here's a MAFs unit operational in the state of California, dropping flame retardant liquid, deploying flame retardant liquid, 8,000 gallons worth. Sir, if it's white, it's probably just water. C-130 aircraft fighting fire seen in the CNN video at 4:15.
Fern.
Dude, it's sick. Look.
Some other smoke trails as well. So they are trying to save this community. That is where the battle has been joined. A lot of air assets, trucks on the ground, fixed-wing aircraft like this.
There it is, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
We have tactically deployed the flame retardant matter, sir.
It is extraordinary to be standing here.
C-130s is going to be tactically making a landing.
And feel the power of that aircraft go right over you and watch it just swoop down so low. It is rare in life you see an aircraft swooping that close to houses.
We watched 3 choppers drop their...
Is it just me, or is that plane just looking fine as hell? I agree. What? It must feel so good for a Vietnam-era plane to drop chemicals on forests. At least this one is to save lives for once. You know what I mean? It still gets to do what it loves to do. It still gets to do what it was tasked to do, dropping chemicals on a forest. But this time it's to save lives rather than, you know, melt Vietnamese villagers. Okay. Before we get to I guess we can talk about the looting now as well. Here.
For looters out here, they have already arrested nearly 24 people inside evacuation areas. The National Guard has been brought in to bolster security, and some people have gone back home to try to defend what they have left. Chris Van Cleef has that from Altadena.
The sense of loss in Altadena is hard to describe. Destruction is everywhere. And then this island of 6 seemingly untouched homes saved by Pete Villani, who stayed behind to fight back the massive firestorm.
These are all my friends. These are all, you know.
Once again, there's like 18 million people, and they've arrested, not charged, not convicted, just simply arrested under the suspicion of looting, 20 people. They say nearly 24 because the number is 20 so far. Okay? 20.
We're a family here. I love my neighbors. And it's like, you feel guilty because I survived. I couldn't save the whole block.
But even as he worked to put out hotspots, another threat emerged: looters. He says he and a neighbor have chased off 2 groups attempting to break into the homes still standing.
What kind of person, what kind of human advantage is somebody at that point? It's just like, I don't even want to say what I would do, but it's shocking.
Did you worry about your safety when you confronted the folks trying to get in that house?
No, I will say this. It would have been a bad day for them to do anything.
Do you feel like you're defending your neighborhood now?
Yep. That's why I'm here. This is why I stayed.
He's still standing watch even as the National Guard's armored vehicles are blocking evacuated neighborhoods and police are ramping up patrols.
Looting has zero tolerance. Looting or exploiting in the disaster areas will not be tolerated. Anybody caught looting or committing crimes in the affected area.
Like, I hope everybody understands, like, looting in a situation like this is completely unacceptable, okay? It is psychotic. Make no mistake, okay? Yeah, you have to be a real freak in dire circumstances to just be like, oh yeah, time for some free stuff. I'm gonna put my life at risk to go into smoldering ashes in these neighborhoods to secure like jewelry or I don't know, like a TV or something. Okay, it is completely unacceptable. Everybody understands this. My point on this, my point when I cover this stuff, is not necessarily to say looting is good, you should let it happen, even though many right-wingers will hear what I'm saying and immediately say, look at Hasan, he loves theft. Okay? My point is that the media greatly overemphasizes these stories for 2 reasons. One, because it is a panic narrative of crime that people are predisposed with, that people love laser focusing on. If it bleeds, it leads. And the other reason why they do it is because this justifies the additional police presence. That way you don't think about why we're giving so much money to the cops and taking away money from firefighters. Even in a time when there is a massive wildfire, the media will always maintain this posture. Okay? Does the media portray anti-looting propaganda during hurricanes? Of course they do. Of course they do. Yes, they do this after every natural disaster. It's additionally crazy to do it after a wildfire, though, because like the fires are still going, it's still blazing through half of these neighborhoods when they're like, it didn't, bro. The Pacific Palisades was still on fire when the new district attorney went to his sister's destroyed house in the Pacific Palisades to cut a video talking about how he's going to kill looters. It's like, bro, you're standing in front of your sister's burned down house, and that's what you got on your mind. You're like, oh, if you try to come here to my sister's burned down house, like, I'll freaking kill you. Looting narratives go crazy. They're protecting us from imaginary looters. Do you remember the news during Katrina? Yeah. Katrina was particularly deadly because people did actually, quote unquote, take matters in their own hands, and they just started shooting random black people under the suspicion that they were looting. Okay. Luckily, it hasn't gotten to that degree here in California, Los Angeles. Woke California hasn't started doing that yet. But of course, the more people hit these like looter lines, the more people panic about this sort of thing, the higher the likelihood that you could potentially go to jail or be detained or arrested for the crime of trying to go back to your house while also being a black person or while also being a brown person or, not looking the neighborhood profile, you know? Yeah. The Leos in the evac zone are standing around waiting for looters with boosted funding. The firefighters bust their asses with diminished resources and reduced funding, and the slaves make $20 to work 24 hours in the trenches. Exactly. I think there is a real reason for why police and even the National Guard must create a security perimeter around these disaster zones. Okay? That I get that. you do that specifically so that you can open up pathways for emergency vehicles in times of need. You can do that, or you must do that, to ensure that random people don't go back to their houses, and then that becomes an additional problem for the emergency services to deal with, because now you have to rescue people. Okay? That makes sense. You can just say that and, you know, be perfectly fine, but they have to overemphasize the looting aspect. Okay? They have to consistently talk about how they're going to blow away any looter that comes, that even looks in the direction of a house, no matter how smoldering. Okay?
Will be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
This was the view from Jonathan Esham's home Tuesday as the Eaton fire raced towards it.
Almost what I would say.
Yeah, people needed supplies to survive because National Guard couldn't reach them. It fueled people taking the law into their own hands on top of spooking cops with the rhetoric. It contributed to killings like the Danziger Bridge tragedy. This is in Katrina, the famous Danziger Bridge tragedy, where they just straight up shot like a bunch of black people under the suspicion that they were looting. I think this is dangerous and irresponsible by local and national news media to consistently heighten the tensions in times where people are already in crisis.
The surface of the sun might look like, you know, it was just pure chaos and panic everywhere.
He evacuated, and while the fire stayed out, it appears someone tried to break in, busting out a window and trying to pry this one open.
The idea that somebody could have been in your house while you guys were evacuated.
It's horrifying. Like, I don't even want to imagine it.
A horror disgustingly man-made in the middle of this massive natural disaster. For CBS Saturday Morning, I'm Chris Van Cleve in Altadena, California.
Jesus Christ. What? Cops seem unnecessarily aggressive too?
I like that bed. I had a
this is a YouTuber.
Purple pillow that Mel gave me. It was also very comfy. This is my hamper. Got my hamper right here, all my dirty clothes. Yeah, they need to get washed for sure. This is where my desk was in this corner. And one thing I'm very sad I didn't get out of here before it burned down was my laptop that had a lot of my family and friend photos on it. Photos of my girlfriend and I, the cats that unfortunately were not backed up anywhere else. And it seems to be gone now. This is the office. This was the small office in my house that was really just used for storage for the greater part of my stay here. You can see that there's some tech stuff in the corner, like this this PC. PC still got a power supply in it, so I'm going to be aware of that. But I believe this was a Cooler Master case.
Oh, it's earlier before the police confront him?
Of course we are.
We're meeting up with one of my friends, Alvaro, right now, who has a truck. It's much higher off the ground than my car, which we're going to need if we plan to access my house.
I don't mean to be rude, but how do people in that area not have important things in a box by the door right now? Dude, I don't think you understand. The Altadena fires just came out of nowhere, and so did the Pacific Palisades ones. Like, it straight up escalated to this point that no one thought it would have. It happened virtually in a matter of like 30 to 40 minutes. This is not an area where there is a lot of wildfire impact. The reality of the matter is that it also, I think, like it's such a, like it's a normal, mostly concrete region. It's not like it's surrounded by forests either. I mean, there's forest around it, but like it just burst into flames, you know? There's not really much you can do. That's why people say it's unprecedented.
So McDonald's is the rendezvous point where we're going to meet Alvaro. He should be here any second.
Alvaro and his doomsday truck have arrived. Check it out, brother.
Whoa. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Like, look at these streets. Like, does this strike you as a area that's like predisposed to wildfires? Like normally? No, it's not. It's on fire every year at this point. Assume your house is going to burn. There are certain areas that are at higher risk of, at higher risk of wildfires. The expectation is not that like every single part of Southern California could light on fire at any given moment. Especially in January too. That's another part of this. Like, it's not even wildfire season. It's supposed to be.
We're at the intersection, about to pull onto my street, but it looks blocked off
All right, here we go. We're gonna have to fabricate a bit of a story here to see if the cops will let us by. We're just gonna say that we're gonna swing by my house or what's left of it to grab my office keys if they're still surviving. That way I can actually have a place to stay for the night. So much ash.
Are they only letting one person in at a time, or what's the story? Let me get on. He called for backup.
Okay.
Wow, he called for backup. Why is he putting his hand on his fucking gun?
They are telling us to go down. They're not super happy.
I gotta wait for them to go so I can turn around. I'm trying to.
Yeah, man, we're trying to do our job.
Okay, all right, all right, all right.
Don't drive past codes or anything else. Go.
Wow.
It does look like they're letting people walk up. They just don't want vehicles driving up the hill. So I think we're just gonna park and just go by foot.
Look how good the cops are, dude. I'm so glad that they're protecting and serving, you know? Oh, that's so sick.
Alvaro brought shovels for us so that we can sift through the ash a bit easier. So we got 2 shovels, and Mike has a hoe because he has a...
They don't want the vehicles in there, for those of you who don't know. They don't want the vehicles in there because they don't want looters, okay? That's it. Because they think that everyone that's coming in to the neighborhood with a vehicle is not actually people like this who just want to go through the rummage through their remains, okay? But instead, that they are all up to no good. They're, you know, they're there for nefarious purpose.
A hoe. Wow. Unfortunately, my house is pretty much the last one on the street. So we actually have maybe a mile and a half to walk up this very steep hill before we get there. Quite a bit of scenery on the way.
Palisades median house price $3.5 million. This is not in the Palisades. This is Altadena, I think.
Like this broken power line that's been split in 2.
Right? He's in Altadena, right, chat? Yeah. This is not like a particularly expensive neighborhood. By the way, I this is like kind of sad, but the cops straight up in a matter of seconds proved the point I was making. If you're black or brown, especially so, where they're just like so gung-ho. They got their hands like just understand, your house is burned to the ground. You're there to go back to the remains to see what you can sift through, okay, in the rubble. And you are faced with a complete dipshit who was ready to kill you on the spot for no reason. Okay? They just walk up to you, hand on hip, hand on their service weapon. You're like, oh, pull out now. Turn around now. It's like, what are you doing? What's happening here? Like, what an insane situation.
And hanging precariously, seemingly by a thread, this power line is completely sideways. That motorcycle's all right. Those cars are not. This used to be a house.
The craziest one is the Honda dirt bike that I saw that was like still functional. The Honda dirt bike that was still functional, even though it was half burned, like half of it was charred. The plastic was just not from this video. I saw it on TikTok. And they give more money to the cops and the firefighters for looters instead of the actual fires. Yeah.
It is no longer. The damage is getting...
How are they supposed to know who's a looter and who's not? Okay. This is the problem with the initial assessment that like everyone that's trying to go back here is a looter, just so you understand. But also, they demand identification to make sure that the only people that are allowed into these areas are people that live there. But there's still obviously issues with that as well. What if you left your house in a panic and your ID is burned to a crisp? Okay, what do you do then? You just can't go back to your house? Okay. What if your address is not of your residence at this point? What do you do then? There are plenty of people who have old IDs that they never actually updated their addresses on.
Getting increasingly intense, and the air quality is getting increasingly worse. Really?
Yeah. How do you know who committed a crime or not? Should cops just arrest everyone then? Silly ass question.
Gotta wear your K95s here. It's getting pretty hard.
I really want you to unpause the fucking vehicle they lit in. Cops are just shit. They were about to get picked up by a truck that the cops led into the area.
Breathe. Another sketchy power line, and something still smoldering over there. We're gonna go around this caution tape cautiously. That is, that's the bottom of a power line. Whoa, that is like molten metal coming from the car.
Look at the brakes.
Holy crap.
They literally were working on their
Is that a
pool.
Porsche?
All right. Wow, this is brutal. Yeah. And some lots are just completely leveled. This one just has a chimney. That's all that's left is a chimney. I mean,
The other part of this is like, this area is totally devastated. Like, what are looters going to loot in this area, man? Like, I get if there is an evacuation order placed upon certain certain areas where there's like homes that still remain, but this is like all ash. Like, what are they gonna? They're gonna loot the cinder? Oh man, I love free charcoal. You know what I'm saying?
I've passed by these houses a million times, and some of them I've admired. You know, just looking at the front yards and how they did things, and taking mental notes for future plans in my own house.
This is the one house that it was stayed intact.
Yeah, it's looking a little different today. Wires. Hopefully they've cut all the power to those, but better to be safe than sorry.
That was or an RV. That was or an RV. Dude, that's
What?
There's a possum in this thing.
Is that a possum?
Oh yeah, there's a dead possum in a trap. It's all ash. Literally, the next house is lootable. Brother, there is one house that's standing. What are you talking about? You saw this entire neighborhood, and there is one house that is intact in the entire neighborhood. Looters are going to be hitting that one house? Is that what you think is going on? Do you think this is appropriate use of funds in that regard? 26-month subscriber. Still, anyone and everyone is actually always invested in looting. Okay? Everyone and anyone. All right? All the time. We have to hyper focus on this. Okay? We have to make sure that this is the most. I like that you sat through me pausing and doing commentary for 20 minutes over this video to find the one house that's intact next to a house that is burned to the ground in an entire city block that is completely reduced to ash. And you're like, well, what if the people wanted to loot this house? You're right, man. What if? You're right. Is this a normal way to exist? I don't understand city behavior. But I guess with the way that suburbs work, there's more and more people like this who operate with this mentality where they're constantly in a panicked situation where they're just like, because if chatter, I don't know if you live in a city or not, but like anyone could technically walk up to you in the middle of the road and just put one in the back of your head. Okay? Anyone, literally anyone could do that right now. When you go outside to get groceries, someone could walk up to you and stab you to death. Okay? Do you think that that is a valid way to approach everyday existence? Do you think that that kind of panic is, I don't know, healthy to have? Great, new fear unlocked. Yeah, anyone could walk up to you right now. Anyone could walk up to you right now when you're on your way to pick up chicken tendies at your local grocery store, walk up to you and go, hey, give me all your money, and then shoot you in the head. If it's not healthy, if it wasn't healthy thinking, why do conservatives already think it? Because they're unhealthy. That's the problem. They're deeply unhealthy. The point is, especially if you live in a city, there's a certain level of danger that can always occur, but there's also a tremendous amount of safety that comes from being around other people. And if you've never lived in a normal city, it is impossible for you to comprehend this. That's the reason why when Austin stays with me and he hears constant police sirens, okay, on major roads, he freaks out. He just thinks like bedlam is happening because in his neighborhood, if he constantly heard, in his suburb, if he constantly heard police sirens, something terrible must be happening. Okay? While the likelihood that you have a lot of people around you increases the likelihood that danger might come your way, okay? There's also safety in being surrounded by other human beings.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, all the way down pretty much.
I guess they are letting trucks in.
All right, this is good.
Okay, this is my next door neighbor's house. Didn't make it.
Holy shit.
And my place.
Is this damage control? What do you mean? Anyway, I personally am more afraid of like quiet suburbs. Anyway, here's some updates from local officials on Eaton Fire.
And finally, to our Los Angeles County residents,
Please be assured that we will continue to battle these wildfires until they are fully contained. We stand alongside all of you as we begin to plan for repopulation of evacuated areas, disaster recovery, and the rebuilding of your homes and
Research and reports often show that looting during natural disasters is rare and communities typically come together to help one another. The belief that looting is widespread can be more reflective of societal anxieties than reality, and it might be perpetuated by capitalist structures that emphasize the importance of property over human welfare. Yeah, no, absolutely. And this doesn't mean that like there is no looting, okay? This doesn't mean that there is no looting that occurs. Of course there is, all right? Of course, yes, there are really desperate people who do incredibly vicious things. But if your expectation is that like there's constant danger that is going to happen in the aftermath of a natural disaster that comes from your fellow man, you're going to lose your mind.
That we're talking about here, that's residential community. It's not wildland. It's a residence, and these are people's houses. So huge Herculean task to get through all this down here. We have a ton of work. It's many days, many weeks of work. Just wanted to highlight that a little bit. As we come through by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, this is looking good. Again, crews engaged, boots on the ground, mopping up. All through the National Forest up here, we continue to make really good progress up there. The weather's in our favor. We're using air tankers, we're using helicopters, all the tools in our toolbox to go get and put this fire out right where you see it right here. So that'll be our goals in the coming days. So thank you very much.
Now we're going to have Los Angeles County Sheriff Commander Tanya E. Plunkett.
Good afternoon. I'd like to take this time to update you on the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's effort in dealing with the Eaton Canyon fire. Currently, in response to the fire, our staffing has increased to approximately 500 personnel. Within the personnel, we have active missions, which include controlling traffic points of approximately 46 hard closures and traffic control. We also have roving security to deal with looting and address those issues, and when necessary, respond to welfare requests and at the direction of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. As you may, as you may be well aware that last night we instituted a curfew order which went into effect from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and currently within the evacuation zones. It's important to know that these zones are going to be strictly enforced, and the reasons behind them is to enhance public security and address enhance public safety and address public security concerns. Within the curfew, we're asking everyone to stay clear of the affected zones unless they are authorized personnel or emergency responders. Anyone found in violation of the curfew order will be subject to a misdemeanor crime and subject to $1,000 fine.
Imagine your city being on fire and you use your platform to play Marvel Rivals and ban anyone that talks about the fires. Who did that? Why are you taking your anxieties and anger and frustration with other content creators to my chat for some reason? Are you okay? Like, see, this is what I'm Pokemon. Okay, dude.
6 a.m. and in at 6 p.m. That search and rescue team, we are working jointly with our partners from Los Angeles County Fire Urban Rescue, the coroner's office, FEMA, OES, and the use of cadaver dogs to search for remains and reunite families, most importantly. These searches will be a part of a grid search, like I mentioned, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. due to safety concerns and our inability to operate during nighttime hours. Unfortunately, we report that we have 8 deaths within the Eaton Canyon fire area that was affected by the fire. And in an effort to deal with the death and the tragedies as a result of this fire, we do have, working with our partners, family assistance centers that are open to provide information to people looking for missing family members, and that location is the Pasadena Civic Center. It will be comprised of OEM, sheriff's deputies, LAPD, Red Cross, the medical examiner.
Implemented a curfew, a 6 p.m. curfew, while simultaneously there's like evacuation orders in place, which I think is so wild because at the same time, at the same time, it's like they're doing the curfew because they're like, oh, if you're ever in or around your house after 6 p.m., that means you're a looter. Like, then the arrest numbers are going to go up, basically. That's it. Because the assessment in that situation is like, if you're in or around an impacted neighborhood after 6 p.m., that must mean that you're there to do, illegal things like stealing. Is there still a fire near you? Chatter, I am in the heart of Los Angeles, which means I am surrounded 3 parts by fire. Although, having said that, I'm also very far away at the same time. Like, this is the situation right now. Look. Oh, I'm in this area. Okay, I'm in this area. There's the Eaton fire, near Pasadena, Altadena, and then there is the Palisades fire that has seemingly made its way into densely populated areas of Encino. But overall, the West Hollywood area is not impacted directly. Can you share this link? This is Watch Duty. It has been an incredibly helpful app. I've been using it since these fires started. Is Will's house fine? Yes, but I believe that they are covered and caked in smoke. And Will was saying that it's probably not healthy to inhale that level of smoke still. This would make him look good. He was never actually even, there were no repercussions for him even lying about committing this racist act of violence. Many years after, he still got a wonderful little movie about his completely made up record. At that point, you can't even call it stealing valor. I would say that he was stealing vices. He was lying about engaging in a racialized lynching.
Oh! We had a whole house. Now we have nothing.
That was our chimney where Santa comes and now it's gone.
Everything that we built here to just be gone.
Everyone has lost everything here.
I have to start all over again. I can't.
We have fire up Hastings Ranch, multiple structures involved.
Having the family is the most important thing.
A nightmare that no one can wake up from. That's what they're saying in LA. At least 11 people are dead and even more missing. A chunk of land the size of San Francisco has been destroyed. Some of the most beautiful land in the world. Parts of Pacific Palisades look like Hiroshima after the atomic bomb. Entire communities decimated. In Altadena, about a dozen homes are left in a neighborhood of 5,000 people.
Dude, I find this so strange when they look at a natural disaster and then compare it to man-made horrors beyond comprehension. But you like the man-made horrors beyond comprehension. Like, it's so weird. It's such a strange thing to be like, yeah, it looks like Hiroshima. And it was good when it happened to Hiroshima.
People. 3 major fires are still uncontained as crews are bracing for another weekend of the powerful Santa Ana winds. On the streets, it's turning into the wild, wild west. Looters on scooters ransacking homes. Thieves are dashing through rubble and ash.
Dude, it's so funny. Like, this is half the chatters think this, by the way. According to all of the people that I have responded to, at least, half of the chatters in this community are just like, you don't understand, dude. When the looting starts, the shooting starts, brother. You're crazy.
Ash with flat screens. Some of them disguised as fire officials and utility workers. The looting is so out of hand that some residents are scared to leave their burned out homes. The governor, Newsom, says looting will not be tolerated. These communities have suffered enough. Well, unless they loot less than $950, then Gavin doesn't mind. One of the Winklevoss twins called out Newsom saying this, quote, "You and your party have been tolerating looting for years. You normalize this behavior and lawlessness. You are a disgrace. Resign now." It's a free-for-all in LA. Every man for themselves, literally. Yesterday, local residents had to take down a vagrant with a blowtorch. They witnessed him setting fire to old Christmas trees and garbage cans. Neighbors called 911, and before the police arrived, they detained him with zip ties and a rope. A good old-fashioned citizen's arrest. Here's LAPD.
What we know right now is that the incident started here, and about 20 minutes, 30 minutes later,
a suspect was detained over in Woodland Hills area by citizens.
So someone purposely set the Kenneth fire?
At this time, that's what we believe, yes.
Do you know how or why they did that?
That I don't know.
Is this a crime scene right now?
Yes.
Dude, my thing is, if you have an institution, an organization like the police department that is, you know, very invested in looting narratives and very invested in like showing that they're doing a great job, if that police department says there's not enough evidence to suggest that this person is an arsonist, right? When they could have just as easily lied, as they do time and time again, if there's enough evidence to stick on a person, then that person might not have actually committed an arson. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Because cops detain people all the time. The very fact that they're still running with this idea that this guy was definitely an arsonist. And I'm not saying that there wasn't any arson or anything like that. I'm simply stating that I do not know. But the way I see it is like, if this dude had any evidence that the police could pin on him for being an arsonist, then they would have kept him in detention for the suspicion that he did the arson. Is Fox News saying the police lied? I don't understand what Fox News is saying. I think they're just going along with what the initial suspicion was.
So everything's closed off.
It's being investigated as a crime.
Police brought him down to the station and a few hours later released him back onto the streets. They said there was no probable cause to charge him with arson, even though there was a half a dozen witnesses who saw him setting things on fire and the guy to blowtorch on him when they...
Like, what is the argument here? That cops want to let, like, arsonists go? Like, what is happening? I can't... Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We are losing our minds, dude. Like, I don't know why this dude is biking around with a blowtorch. Okay? I don't know. And I understand why those civilians thought that he was an arsonist. Okay? I get it. If you see a random dude on a bike with a blowtorch, you're like, that, you know, you're not, your first inclination is not, oh, he's probably using it to do dabs. Okay? Especially when there's a wildfire going on. But the difference is, I understand the motivation of the police department in getting a ginormous W. Can you imagine how great of a justification it is for your expansive budgets if you caught an arsonist? Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a fantastic, major dub, massive W, right? So they have all the more reason to say this person is an arsonist. And yet they're not saying that. Instead, they're saying that they don't have enough evidence to suggest that this guy is an arsonist. So for Fox News to make it seem as though, like, nah, the woke police let this guy go, like, you're living on an alternative universe.
They arrested him. That's not probable cause. So what was he doing with the blowtorch? Lighting a blunt? If this wasn't a homeless guy, I'm not sure, because homeless accounted for over half of the fires in LA.
Wait, what?
Based on that statistic, there's a strong probability that a homeless guy burned the city down. But we're waiting for the investigation to play out. Homes have been completely toasted, and some people say it feels intentional. Here's...
Oh my God, dude, the police are woke. It's actually the homeless. There's no evidence to suggest that this was man-made at all, but we're just going to go with that. Like, that is crazy. The idea that fire inspectors would ignore arson evidence and suspects is completely insane, especially in Cali, where there was once a fire inspector who was himself an arsonist. Yeah, it's just, I'm not trying to be woke here, okay? I'm not. I'm simply urging people to exercise critical thinking and caution. That's it. You know what my biases are, okay? But I'm not applying them in this situation. I'm telling you right now, I don't know, okay? We do not know. We will eventually find out. There will be a tremendous amount of investigation conducted into what started these fires. I know that because I've seen previous wildfires where similar suspicions were raised by the very same charlatans, okay? But as far as like, as looking at the story, yeah, I thought initially when I saw a dude on a bike with a blowtorch being apprehended by random citizens, yeah, I was like, oh, shit, it might actually be an arson. At least one of these fires might actually be an arson. That's an understandable assessment to make in this circumstance. Okay? Not to say that all of the fires are caused by arson or they're caused by homeless people or undocumented migrants or whatever. I'm not saying that at all, but it could have very well been the case. But then the police immediately came out and revealed that they did not have any evidence to suggest that this person had caused a fire at all. It's over at that point. Like, what are we doing? You see someone with a blowtorch, but did you see it? Or was it just what you heard? No, we saw it, dude. What are you talking about? There's footage. Like, yes, it is a dude with a blowtorch. It's funny, blaming your own viewers too is the homeless fault, and especially those victims who lost their homes and became homeless. Good job, Fox News. Bro, you know he did it, right? Hasan, you know the location of the Kenneth fire was an ember from the Palisades. The wind was going in the opposite direction, and they're nowhere near each other. It was right above Hidden Hills. Honestly, no doubt in my mind he was an arsonist. You need evidence in this country, though? Brother, what are you saying? Like, do you think the police would let someone go if there was any inclination that they were an arsonist? This person was an arsonist? Jesse W. photo. Oh my God, it's Jesse Waters. It's Jesse Waters' photo. Oh my God, it's Jesse Waters' account. Jesse Waters, a 9-month subscriber. Yes, actually, you think the police... I'm jumping to conclusion, brother. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. When I saw this video initially, I thought, yeah, they got an arsonist. I get it. I understand why you would think that. It makes sense. It looks like a duck. It walks like a duck. You're like, oh, it's a duck. But then the duck hunter turns around and tells you it's not a duck. What are you supposed to do? Be like, nah, he still did it. I know it. Like, you can't. What if it's just bad policing? Bad policing is not what you think it is if you think letting a guy like this go is bad policing. Okay? First of all, he's brown. If he was a white dude in an Acura or above, okay, and they let him go, that would be bad policing, like the Ted Bundy case, very famous case, where cops just like let him walk past him because he was a handsome white gentleman, okay? That would be bad policing. Bad policing in other circumstances is keeping people detained under faulty evidence or no evidence whatsoever. Bad policing doesn't go in the direction of like letting especially black or brown criminals or suspected criminals escape. Bad policing doesn't go in this direction. It goes in the opposite direction, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, having said that, I'm not saying carrying torches around in the open is not sus. I think it's sus too. What are you talking about? I know, I'm recognizing that. Anyway, the point I was making is that when there are multiple major wildfires taking place with 80 to 100 mile winds, okay, that are swinging telephone poles and power lines wildly in the direction of overgrown shrubbery that is right up in the ass cheeks of those power lines, as you see electrical sparks and you immediately go, must be arson. It's like, that feels a little wild. That feels like a jump that you are taking, okay? Literally woke warrior on a natural cause. I just don't think the police would lie like that, though. They're instructed and they swear an oath. Wait, you're baiting, right? There's a term for it. It's called test-a-lying. Yeah, police would never lie under oath. I'm a woke warrior. You're right.
Half a dozen witnesses who saw him setting things on fire and the guy to blowtorch on him when they arrested him. That's not probable cause. So what was he doing with the blowtorch? Lighting a blunt?
Since I thought, oh, damn.
Anyway,
based on that statistic.
He then follows up by saying, like, from 2021, homelessness-related fires made up 54% of all fires that the department responded to.
There's a strong probability.
He assumes that guy is a homeless person and also an arsonist, which is crazy.
That a homeless guy burned the city down. But we're waiting for the investigation to play out.
But the funniest assumption, in my opinion, here is that the cops are woke and let him go.
Been completely toasted, and some people say it feels intentional. Here's Mel Gibson.
It's very sad, and there were many things, gone.
Yeah. Here's further evidence. Here's further evidence that will defend my point here. Further evidence by a man who I can only explain as going through a mental health episode, a very public mental health episode.
On in the blaze that, I've thought about since I thought, oh.
Here's famous racists going through it in broad daylight.
Oh, damn, that's too bad. But, you know, works of art, photographs, rare books, you know, old books. Some as old as, you know, 1600, you know, it's like crazy.
Irreplaceable.
And irreplaceable stuff. California has a lot of problems that sort of baffle the mind as far as why they do things. And then in the events like this, you sort of look, well, is it on purpose?
All these fires should have been contained within 24 hours. It's the duty of a politician to prepare for the worst. And everyone saw this fire coming.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons that freaked me out. He goes, dude, one day, he goes, it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean. And there's not a fucking thing we can do about it. I go, really? He goes, yeah, we just get lucky. He goes, we get lucky with the wind. He goes, but if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it.
Yeah. You know who else also made these predictions? Aside from the firefighters, or the one firefighter that happened to talk to Joe Rogan, climate scientists, but they're woke and gay. So obviously, what do they know? All they know is eat hot chip and, you know, invest in renewable energies and lie.
So how well was California prepared? Last week, the reservoir in Pacific Palisades was completely empty. There was no water. It could have been filled with 117 million gallons of water.
Everyone saw it coming, but there's no way it could have started on its own, and it has to be an arson. Yeah, by the way, those two things are directly contradictory to one another, but it doesn't matter because it's just a barrage of misinformation. I feel like at this point, right-wingers specifically love the game of it. You know what I mean? They don't even... As long as there's like racial animus that you can engage in, and as long as you are just saying whatever is not true, that's cool. Okay? It's like they're not even trying to accidentally arrive at the correct conclusion. They're just actively trying to undermine the truth.
Instead, it was dry and closed for repairs. They closed the...
Like, doesn't it shock people that these wildfires happen, okay? And these wildfires happen, and the right wing has said that the responsible party is gay firefighters and DEI, or surplus boots that were sent to Ukraine 3 years ago, like extra boots, or it was actually the reservoir that was empty, even though it seems like, according to LA Water Management, that there was sufficient water, but the issue was with water pressure in general, even though fire hydrants are not built or designed to combat a fire of this magnitude. And that it was actually, we don't know what it was caused by, but it was actually caused by Guatemalan immigrant criminal arsonist, homeless people. And also that we have to destroy the natural habitat of the Sacramento waterways so that we can open up new golf courses and do more agricultural production in Southern California. All of that. Or weather machines. Or Goku.
Pacific Palisades Reservoir during the season when the Santa Ana winds blow the hardest. And now the whole town's barbecued. And LA's water czar knew it. She basically watched them drain it. That's according to the Daily Mail. Janice Quiones gets paid $750,000 a year. Wonder how she got that job. Gavin Newsom also cut the fire budget.
What is the implication is what? That she got the job by being not white or something?
By $100 million last year, and then vetoed a bill that would have given fire department more seasonal workers when they were short-staffed, like now. LA Mayor Karen Bass cut her fire department's budget too. LA couldn't even get a simple evacuation alert right. Last night, the whole county panicked.
We're just mapping out here are under mandatory evacuations, and obviously you can hear all of our phones are going off some type of alert, an evacuation warning, it looks like.
Yeah, my alert reads, This is an emergency message from the LA County Fire Department. An evacuation warning has been issued in your area.
Yeah.
This
is what this looks like.
Remain vigilant of any threats and be ready to evacuate. Gather loved ones, pets, and supplies. Continue to monitor local weather news and the webpage alertla.org for more information.
Yeah, so these alerts come
like on my phone.
Yeah, and here we are in West LA, and we're getting an alert. We'll have to look into why.
Guess what? False alarm. No need to evacuate. The city said,
woke DEI, false alarm.
Sorry, it was an accident. They're going to give people heart attacks. People are leaping into their EVs and speeding out of town. Oops, never.
Why are you defending this? Look at what our hometown looks like. Defending what? Do you think I'm defending wildfires or local government incompetence? I've criticized it plenty. As a matter of fact, me criticizing Jesse Waters' idiotic commentary here is quite literally me continuing to defend the truth. I don't defend anything but what the correct assessment is. Okay? Is it incompetence that Jesse Waters is pointing out? Or is he randomly making insane speculations about how it's Guatemalan migrants that are homeless that are causing these fires to happen? How is that actually pointing to the incompetence?
Never mind. Nothing, I mean, nothing has gone right. The fire chief of LA, Kristen, says the mayors failed her.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Over the last 3 years, been.
And now the only truthful aspect of this comes in, and it's exclusively used as a weapon against like the Democratic Party and woke DEI. I guess they were talking about how she was a DEI hire, but then once she started actually criticizing Karen Bass for mismanagement and underfunding the fire department, when obviously there was some critical revenue needs that they had, critical budget needs that they had, all of a sudden she's no longer a woke gay lesbian.
Been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are.
But for some reason, and I think we know why, the mayor and the governor are still getting a pass for most of the legacy press. Listen to a governor who's grappled with his share of disasters.
If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. When we had the Surfside Tower collapse.
You seem to not understand what living in a country full of Nazis means. Yes, you're right. I'm totally oblivious to that. Thank you, Ginny, for Palestine. I have no idea what it looks like.
I had
even though I cover it every day.
People from the Washington Post trying to blame me for it immediately without having any facts. That mayor of LA, if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, you know the fires are at high risk and you try to go to Africa?
But Gavin Newsom says none of this is my fault. The real battle we need to wage here is against the people blaming me.
We've got to deal with this misinformation. There were hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation lies. People want to divide this country, and we're going to have to address that as well. And it breaks my heart as people are suffering and struggling that we're up against those hurricane forces as well. And that's just a point of personal privilege that I share that with you because it infects real people that are out there, people I meet every single day, people the mayor's been meeting with, and they're having conversations that are not the
Nazis killed dozens of my blood relatives, and you guys casually say our country's filled with Nazis? How do you expect to be taken seriously by people who have actual beef with Nazis? Wait, what are you talking about? You think people... Dude, you think that we should just wait until the final solution is implemented? Like, what's going on? Donald Trump has actively said he's running. Yes, our country is filled with Nazis. It is true. What are you talking about? 100%. What do you think mass deportation of 20 million people looks like? Like, this is silly. There is no, what is this like? Oh, I'm going to gatekeep the word Nazi. We're in the initial stages of the Madagascar plan being implemented against undocumented migrants. There's a massive meaningful gap between where we're at now and actual Nazis. No, there isn't. No, you just think someone is a Nazi after the fact. That's the problem. That's the issue. This is a silly, thought-terminating way of approaching what is happening in front of you. It completely undermines the necessity for learning about history. We shouldn't learn about history at all. Okay? It is not useful to learn about history. Yeah. I will wait until not even 5.9 million. I will wait until 6 million people are ruthlessly slaughtered, and only then will I feel comfortable calling the perpetrators Nazi. Like it's not like Hitler came in and immediately started murking people, okay? You think that only after the 6 millionth Jewish person that was killed in death camps, only then were they considered Nazis, or do you think it built up to that point? This is why intent is more important when making assessments about genocide. Otherwise, it would simply be a post-mortem analysis.
Typical conversations you'd have at this time, and you wonder where this stuff comes from. And it's very damaging as well.
This is what Democrats do. They screw up and then call their critics liars. But this time, that's hard to do when your whole city is still on fire.
I think they were Nazis when they invaded my country, Czechoslovakia, and implemented a systematic genocide. We are not even close, man. Look up Reinhard Heydrich and tell me who the equivalent of that is in our country. Do you think that before they actually invaded Czechoslovakia and implemented a systemic genocide that you shouldn't have called them a Nazi or been afraid of what they're doing? I'm not a debate nerd, but that is just not a logical argument. If they start doing Nazi shit, I'm with you guys. At what point do you think Adolf Hitler can be considered a Nazi? Is it when he wrote Mein Kampf? Is it after the Reichstag fire? Is it the initial steps of the Madagascar plan that was supposed to be a forcible deportation of all Jews and suspected Jews and socialists? Because a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about predates the invasion. I understand what your concerns are. The problem is I've already addressed those concerns and you refuse to hear it, okay? Fascism doesn't happen overnight. One moment you're not a fascist and then the next you are. It doesn't work like that, okay? It happens over time. It happens over decades sometimes. When you are actively running a campaign of mass deportation of 20 million people that you want to put into camps, I disagree with how slippery you think the slope is. Do you think mass deportation of 20 million people is valid enough to say that a person is a Nazi or a fascist? Fascist, yes, but not Nazi fascism. Like maybe Mussolini-style fascism I'm on board with, but like not Nazi fascism. Is that what you're saying? Is that what it is? What a silly, pedantic argument. It's a catch-all term for fascist, okay? That's it. Literally, yes, the rhetoric is meaningfully different. No, it's not, because ultimately you arrive at one can only be a Nazi after the fact. That's the problem. You consider someone to be a Nazi only after the fact. That's the difference. Okay? This is a useless argument around semantics. Yeah, chatters be like, one can only be a Nazi if they come from a specific region in Europe.
Nobody wants.
Also, Nazis were fascists.
Wants to hear politicians whine about misinformation during a crisis. People have lost their homes and everything in it, their most cherished belongings, their great-grandfather's watch, their mother's wedding ring.
You are breeding hate by labeling people the worst thing possible for bad opinions. I don't believe it's beneficial to label people that way. It just makes people whose opinion could be changed to hate you and disregard you. Yeah. If you are on board with the deportation of 20 million people, okay, if you're vociferously defending that and you get more upset at being called a Nazi or a fascist in that process, then you are a Nazi. That's it. This is incredibly stupid. I'm breeding hate because I'm critical of the lies that people tell, racially charged lies that people tell in an effort to justify the mass deportation of 20 million people. I am the one who is divisive and hateful. What are we doing? Think for a moment, okay? Please. It's always funny for a lot of privileged people that refuse to check their own personal blind spots. It's always funny when they go, it's not actually the racialized act of violence that is the problem here. It's you pointing it out. You're the one who's being divisive. So many people slide in to that comfortable boundary of reactionary thinking. Like instantly. Check my previous message for the thick chatters, please. Let's hear it. There. Okay. No previous message that was sent. Let's continue with Jesse Waters.
Priceless family heirlooms. Some have no insurance. The home is all they had. And they turn on TV and the governor's complaining about his approval rating and what someone wrote in the comment section. This fire has unleashed a fury in Hollywood. Actors and actresses who would never dare attack a Democrat because it could cost them their jobs are lacing into Gavin. Here's actress Sarah Foster, quote, "We pay the highest taxes in California. Our fire hydrants were empty. Our vegetation was overgrown. Brush not cleared. Our reservoirs were emptied by our governor because tribal leaders wanted to..."
This is just a rehashing of all of the right-wing talking points. Some of it is true, and some of it is just like silly nonsense that Donald Trump primed people into thinking is the real reason.
Save fish. Our fire department budget was cut by our mayor, but thank God drug addicts are getting their drug kits. LA Mayor and Gavin Newsom resign. Your far-left policies have ruined our state and also our party. Even Morning Joe can't defend this. And they've defended everything, and I mean everything.
We don't know the exact causes for the complete failure of government to be able to protect these homes. I don't think we can say it's the smelt alone. We don't know what it is, but I do think it's going to be like Hurricane Katrina. I mean, the infrastructure has been slashed. It's hard to hear people say in one of the richest cities in the world that, oh, we don't have enough water to protect people's homes.
We're witnessing the collapse of liberal society. Everything's on fire, falling apart at the same time because of stupidity, corruption, and radical priorities. Reservoirs are bone dry, but California Democrats are spending millions on DEI, migrants, and drug addicts. Now, Primetime tried to save California. Remember the last couple of years? We finally threw up our hands and said, we can't save it if they don't want to be saved. After 30,000 acres have been torched and the fire's still not contained, in the capital of Sacramento, they just called an emergency session to battle Trump.
Is now the right time to have a special legislative session on allocating money to fight Trump in a way that you could already do without a special legislative session?
So I'm here to address these.
Yeah, when it happens in red states, it's the act of God. When it happens in blue states, it's DEI and woke liberal policies. And also gay immigrants that are homeless, that are doing arson and also looting while doing arson. They're doing arson and looting at the same time. Yeah.
These wildfires.
And sometimes it's actually happening in red states because of blue states that have weather machines that are blowing the winds in the direction of the red states to kill them.
This is a historic wildfire. This is a historic event. These wildfires, as I mentioned, are going to be quite possibly some of the worst wildfires and disasters in the state.
While people are trying to understand what's going on and are worried about disaster relief, worried about the ability to get homeowners insurance, your chamber gavelled into a special legislative session to prepare for Donald Trump. Again, is now the right time for that?
So certainly our focus right now is Speaker Ashley. At this moment, my colleagues and I, we are acting with great urgency to ensure that we're providing much needed relief.
Liberal society's gone mad. People have been institutionalized for less. California has been trying for years to destroy Western civilization. Well, this is what it looks like. They finally...
What are you saying? Dude, oh my God. He's so close to the 14 words, dude. Oh my Lord. We are already in it, and it's gonna get so much worse. California's been trying to destroy Western civilization. California is perhaps one of the greatest propaganda machines for the very concept of Western civilization.
Did it. Primetime's calling for a federal takeover of California. When a state becomes this dangerous and the government becomes this reckless, where the lives of millions of American citizens are being destroyed, their homes obliterated, their infrastructure annihilated, we can't wait for a recall election. This is an issue of national security. This is a public health emergency. We know they have public health emergency powers. Remember the pandemic? Invoke them. The elected officials in California can't be trusted they're criminally negligent. Look at what we're seeing. This is a war scene. And if anyone thinks the people who are responsible for this catastrophe are going to somehow rebuild,
I mean, I think, for the record, I think this is a pretty decent template for what is to come. Climate change supercharged extreme weather conditions lead to once in a lifetime, once in a century natural disasters that are going to become more and more commonplace. And in the process, when it happens in a blue state, they're going to say it's because of woke homosexuals. And when it happens in a red state, they're going to either say it's because of God, an act of God, or still like a weather machine or whatever. It's a purposeful distraction away from the actual reasons as to why these things seemingly happen more frequently. And that's it. Like, you're going to see this more and more, especially because these kinds of these kinds of natural disasters are going to happen way more frequently due to weather patterns changing dramatically. That's it. Straight up. This is the template. This is what they're going to keep doing over and over again. You're going to see a lot worse instances of this. It will probably lead to vigilante justice and a lot more violence dished out against people who take matters in their own hands, who see their fellow neighbors as the villains, as to why these things are happening.
You're out of your mind.
That's where we're at.
If they're left in charge to rebuild, steal the money. Nothing's going to get rebuilt. Everyone's going to get screwed.
Are you saying that those in charge of California are climate change deniers? No. I'm saying that those in charge of California are even worse than the typical right-wing climate change denier, because they will look at climate change and go, I see it, I hear it, we trust the science, and then continue not taking the initiative because they are capitalists. This is the consistent pattern with the Democratic Party. And before people say, well, they're better than the Republicans, yes, I recognize that they are better than the Republicans. You are absolutely correct. But they still very obviously do not take the necessary precautions. Okay? That's why the incompetence and the mismanagement from the LA County is very important to point to here. If you have money in the budget, but you're cutting the fire department's resources when they're desperately demanding more money to combat these sorts of disasters before they occur, and giving extra funds to the tune of $130 million to the police department, okay, when the LA Fire Department is asking for 71 additional people to hire, and you end up forcing them to cut their existing labor force by 30 people, okay, while simultaneously you're like, we really, really, really need to hire more cops. It doesn't matter if you're a climate change denier or not. It doesn't matter. They're just marginally better than the Republican Party in terms of trying to manage this, okay?
This is biblical level destruction. And the city of LA is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. There's no way we can showcase LA to the world. A full federal takeover is needed. Invoke the Stafford Act. The state's overwhelmed. Martial law might have to be declared. Primetime praise for the poor people of LA, and hope we can put out the